Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're delighted to see so many people jumping into the room here. My name is Sinead McNamara, and I'm the organizer of the National Menopause Summit supported by M&S. This is the fourth of a four-part series, if you like, that we've done in the last 3 Mondays, and obviously tonight in the run-up to the event, where I have the great pleasure of having a chat with some of the iconic speakers that we've gathered at the event. And this is part of a series called Menopause Supports with M&S. So that's what we're doing here this evening, in case anybody is wondering. So it's my great pleasure this evening to chat with Sallyanne Brady. And Sallyanne started the Irish Menopause online support group back in 2019 and now has over 49,000 members at this stage. Sallyanne, is that right?
Josie, we might make the 50 by Thursday. Wow. It's that close.
Well, that would be absolutely amazing. And Sallyanne as well was one of the people very instrumental in pushing the whole narrative around menopause into the public realm through her now infamous phone call with Joe Duffy back in May 2021, wasn't it, Sallyanne?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I suppose, look, I think we'll all be very interested to hear what your experience of menopause was, Sallyanne, and basically what prompted you to start the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
My experience of menopause, which was perimenopause, was nothing short of absolute horrific. I suppose it started in my mid-30s. I developed this anxiety that came out of nowhere, and I just felt really lost and was worrying about everything. It didn't make any sense because at that time I was in a good place in life and I had a lot of stresses, but they were all gone. And I was sort of going, like, I don't have anything to bother me.
Yes,
and I was just out of my mind, you know, insanely anxious. And that started to escalate and escalate as the months ticked by. And, you know, it became worrisome then. Then I started visiting the GP regularly. Nobody could sort of figure out. Then I was referred to psychiatry, which was, you know, unsettling. And then I started thinking, gosh, yeah, maybe I am developing some terrible mental illness. And so what if I am? We'll deal with it. But they couldn't diagnose anything. I just kept coming out of everywhere with, generalized anxiety. So I lived with that, and we tried, I did try lots of the usual suspect drugs they prescribed. Nothing ever helped. You know, I just thought, there's something they can't figure. I really thought, there's something really wrong with me. They can't figure it out. Yeah. Then physical stuff started happening. And I always remember one of the first ones was I was in work and at my laptop, and all of a sudden my eyesight went, and like it was kind of flicking, and I saw these zigzag lines. And the next thing I was blinded by a headache. And that was my first experience of what is referred to as a migraine with aura. I had never had a headache before. I wasn't a migraine sufferer.
Right.
So, of course, you know yourself, Sinead, and by 5 o'clock I was self-diagnosed with a brain tumour. I had a month to live.
Of course, onto Google. Yeah, Dr. Google. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that was kind of the start of the physical stuff. So there was that kind of weird stuff happening, then weird numbness. Then I developed really bad jaw pain out of nowhere, and nobody could figure that one out either. Sleep, of course, disappeared. This went on for quite a while, and I had just decided myself, look, I'm really sick. I'm dying. They just can't figure out the diagnosis yet. I just need to accept this. It was a very difficult time. But then night sweats came.
So, Sallyanne, I mean, it's not a trite to say I think I might be dying, but they just haven't found the underlying.
It was
problem.
very frightening.
Of course.
Yeah. It was really frightening, and I suppose, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I suppose I've owned this for so long. I no longer get distressed about it. But one of the most frightening parts of it was when I went for the brain MRI, and they picked up on something, but they weren't sure what the something is. And a GP at that time said, we're looking at MS. So there you go. It was a very frightening time, and there was a lot of tears and a lot of no sleep, and everybody was affected by it. You know, I'm a mother, and, you know, it affects everybody. But then within months, I think night sweats arrived, and as usual, Google. So night sweats meant I was either had lymphoma, or menopause.
Yes.
Simple as that. It was very basic. And I said, well, I don't have lymphoma because I had blood results, you know, they'd be like a toilet roll, like that many blood results everywhere. Definitely not lymphoma. So it's got to be the menopause. And then I started click, 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 light bulb moment. I lost my mum when I was very young, and without getting too dark about it, menopause took her at the age of 49.
Wow.
So I grew up essentially without a mum because of the menopause, and I never knew that.
Yes.
And it was just light bulb, light bulb, light bulb. So I began on the journey of, hello, Mr. Doctor, I think I'm heading for early menopause. You know, and every single time, no, you're too young, you're too young. We'd run bloods. Bloods were always fine. So to cut a very long story short, it escalated and escalated and escalated. I was still spending all my money on all these specialists, going from one place to the next place. No, nothing. You're too young is all I was met with. Eventually, I did meet someone that listened. And that was by the time I was 40. Now, this had been going on since 35, 36.
Right.
And in the meantime, Sinead, I got to a very dark place, and I used to have to attend Pieta House every week to keep me alive.
Right.
Because I had no reason to live anymore. I had no quality of life. I had no purpose. I was an unfit mother because I wasn't able. I was losing my marbles, or so I thought. I wasn't able to function as well at work, etc. So it got to dangerous territory. But thankfully, this doctor did listen and said, you are very young, but you know what? Let's try some hormones. They won't do you any harm. If you feel better, then we're on to something. And if you don't, then we'll go down. No, I thought that was very reasonable.
Yeah.
And we tried hormones, and I got my life back.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? You know, that's just...
Yeah, my MS disappeared. My jaw pain disappeared. I started sleeping at night. The anxiety disappeared. I started to look more like myself again. I remember even seeing in the mirror before HRT, I looked grey, if that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I looked black and white.
Yeah.
Okay, and my eyes were dead in my head, and I started to notice more colour come back in me, and I noticed I had a sparkle in my eye, and I actually smiled.
It's funny that you should say that, Sallyanne, because I was talking to Loretta Dignam. I know you know Loretta well last week on the Insta Live, and Loretta was saying that, you know, she, like yourself, not exactly the same, but, you know, similarly had a really, really difficult experience with menopause. And when she eventually went and was terrified of HRT, like lots of people were, and then when she eventually embraced that, she said people were saying to her, did you do something with your skin? Did you do something with your hair? Do you know what I mean? Because suddenly she sort of looked refreshed and you know, healthy and glowy and, you know, I mean, you know, looking good. And that the hormones, like you would say, transformed her from being in black and white to being back in colour again. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what I'd say. I saw life in colour. It's like someone opening the curtains, perhaps. There's different expressions. And this is not about appearance anyway. When you're feeling that bad, you really don't give a hoot what you look like. But those things were bonuses. And you're like, I feel better, and I actually want to get up. I actually want to empty the dishwasher. I want to go to the shop. Like, we don't know what we have till it's gone. And that is such a true expression. And we take things for granted. And to wake up and all of a sudden realize you don't want to do anything, you're not interested in going shopping. If someone said to you, listen, here, it's €10,000 and we're going to go to the Maldives, you'd probably go, oh, God, where this is menopause, you know? So I became intrigued, Sinead, obviously by the light bulb aha moment, but I just became intrigued by the whole thing, probably obsessed, actually. I began researching and reading. There's no book out there I haven't read about menopause or hormones, anything to do with any of it, from the diet, whether it's a good book or a bad book, I've read it because I'm very open-minded to everyone's approach. And then I started getting really, you know, there's different phases of it, but then I started to get angry is too strong a word, but passionate about, hang on a second, I can't be the only woman in this country that this has happened to. I can't. I'm not that special.
Of course.
And I realised then, well, where did I find the information? I found it from reading. I found it from scientific literature and studies. And I also found some very, very good information on the internet in Facebook groups, believe it or not, in the United States. And there was an excellent group in the UK that really helped me as well. And I said, why do we not have this in Ireland? Why? We need, a menopause encyclopedia. We want somewhere that a woman can say, oh, I'll go there, I'll get the information. It's about informed decision making, getting the information, and then you can do as you please with the information. There's no point for me, and no offense to anybody, for me to go into a group and say, I can't sleep at night and I had to get up and open the window and I had to change my pajamas. I get it, that's terrible, but I'm a doer. That doesn't solve anything. I'd say, fine, yeah, okay, but what do I do about it? So that would be the way I am. I don't, yeah. So I wouldn't get anything out of that type of chit chat.
Sure, I agree. And similarly, Sallyanne, from my perspective with the event, I couldn't believe that we didn't have, I could believe, but I saw, and, I thought to myself, no one's doing a national event that is 100% fact-based. Nobody is doing that. So again, I wanted to do my part in that regard. So, it's one thing thinking about these things and all the rest, but it's a completely other situation to actually proactively do them. And somebody has to, and fair play to you, Sallyanne, you were passionate enough to, and I'm sure I know it takes up a huge amount of your time to launch the Irish menopause, and it was the same with ourselves in terms of the event. So in terms of your members, what kind of feedback do you get from your members, Sallyanne? One assumes that they're very happy to have a resource like this, but generally, what kind of feedback do you get? And what would be, if you like, and we know there's no such thing as the standard menopause, but what would be the most typical kind of inquiries that you would get from women on the Irish menopause?
Sure. Yeah. And just to backtrack a teeny bit, Claire, who's a very good friend of mine, Claire set it up with me, so the two of us together.
Yes.
And we get wonderful feedback, and we're not doing this for any form of recognition or anything. And sometimes it's mind blowing what we hear behind the scenes, and you nearly, you're shy because of it. But people have told us that we have saved lives. And, for someone to say that to you is huge. That was the intention, because I was so frightened by what nearly happened to me. I thought, well, how many women might be losing their lives because of this, And I remember thinking, if this group could save a life, one. And
for sure,
we've saved thousands. Yeah. So the level of knowledge is really very poor, and that is not directed at the women of society. That is the fault of the education system and our doctors. Women do honestly not know when perimenopause starts, which is 35, by the way, onwards. I have women who are 48, 49, 50 gone, oh, my friend is telling me I couldn't be sure, I'm too young. That level of knowledge. And women are hungry to figure out why. And it's really sad seeing the amount of different symptoms women are having, and they don't realise that it's to do with hormones. Also, the amount, and I understand they have a place, the amount of prescription drugs some people are on. And I'm not knocking that, and I'm not a doctor, but it's quite scary. And we women who are able to come off lots of stuff they're prescribed in place of HRT, which is amazing.
Yes.
It's
and I think one of the things that's quite shocking, really, and again, I'm not judging anybody, people can manage their menopause in whatever fashion they see fit. It's a free country, and that's fine. But I think what's really important, Sallyanne, and I know you would agree with me here, whatever road you choose to go down that road informed, you know what I mean? Informed of the facts. Because unfortunately, firstly, women are extremely vulnerable at the time of menopause. And it's very easy to, sort of reach for particular solutions that are advertised or seem like they're easily available or whatever. And, that's fine, but know the limitations of the choices that you are making. And if you're fully aware of HRT, and you choose, which is fine, it's just not for me, know that some of the other things that are suggested will not have the potency of HRT. And just be aware of that, and then be, I suppose, prepared to deal with that as time goes on. So that's been my...
Agreed. I always say to... and I always say to women, look at menopause like you've finally got to a crossroads and you've different roads. Which one are you going to take? So,
Yeah.
you know, you need to be aware, for example, that without your hormones, your heart, your brain, and your bones in particular are wide open. Okay, so if you choose not to take hormones, it's your own choice. You need to make extra effort with your heart, brain, and bones. Got to change. You got to up your game, change your lifestyle, get exercise in, stop smoking, stop drinking, etc., etc. But what's really sad is, I mean, I deal with women all day, every day, as you know, and these women who might only be mid to late 50s and they're in tears because they've osteoporosis. And they would say, I never knew that hormones played a role. If I had known, things might have been different. So this comes back to the same thing, Sinead, and the summit, what we're doing, informed decision making. Women are choosing to go the natural route and antidepressants, for example. Because they're not that bad, in fairness, and they feel great, and I'm delighted, but they don't know they're losing bone at the same time. So this is where, you know, maybe have a DEXA just to make sure your bones are okay. Absolutely. Informed decision making, that's all I can say.
I know, I agree with you. I mean, I can't say myself informed decision making in any more styles than I'm saying. I mean, and I mean the whole idea of the event and what drove me to put the event together was a real personal, and this is a personal thing, ladies and gentlemen who are here with us, a real frustration with sort of the woo-woo that floats around online in terms of, you know, drink this, take this. And as I always say, when this subject comes up in my kitchen, which is just over there, on top of my microwave, I have vitamin D, I have cod liver oil, I have a number of supplements. But I luckily am informed enough to know that what is happening in my body through a lack of hormones because of menopause, that these products can't save my bones, they can't save my heart, they can't guarantee as much as we can be guaranteed. We never know what's going to happen. They're not doing the best job that I could do for myself in terms of managing my health into the future. And I have to be honest with you, Sallyanne, and again, no disrespect or no judgment on anyone. I still sort of find it a little bit shocking that there is such a vacuum of knowledge around this, and that there's still a huge amount of people who aren't or haven't. And again, we could blame society, doctors, we can blame lots of people, but who still don't have the information, because at the end of the day, and no judgment anyone, you know, we have to take responsibility for our health, because there's only ourselves. We have to look after ourselves, and there's no point in pointing the finger and saying, well, you know, whatever, you know, people are aware that menopause is coming down the track if you're a woman and you're lucky enough to live to this stage of your life. And you really have to be responsible for your health and do the best by yourself, Sally. Do you know what I mean? For yourself.
Agreed. Nobody is going to ring you or knock on your door and say, let me help you with your menopause. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. There isn't the resources out there. And I mean, you know, if you look at our group, I mean, myself and Claire, two of us, and then the next thing we were like 100 women and 200 women and so on. 50,000 women. We don't go looking for them. They're coming to us in droves. Yeah. Just you know, they want information. It's not like we're offering anything to them, you know, if you join us, you get a free t-shirt. No, they want the information they're copying on. Yeah. Women are realising what I'm seeing a pattern of, which in a way it's very sad but wonderful for ourselves, is I'm seeing this pattern of all women saying to me, I was looking at my mum, I was looking at my granny, I was thinking of, and the pennies are dropping, and they're starting to look at the older generations, and they're the forgotten generation, and we can't forget those women. You know,
oh no, absolutely
shocking.
And no, absolutely, Sally, and I agree with you. And the tragedy is, in the particular case, just picking up on something that you said earlier, that if you know, you're dealing with your members, and some people, for example, who are in their 50s and have osteoporosis, you know, I mean, that is tragic and desperate, because that was so completely preventable. Do you know what I mean? Like preventable.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you know, there's other factors for osteoporosis, you know, eating disorder, celiac disease, etc., etc. However, you know, I mean, why are we not checking our bones anyway? regardless of that. Like hormones, the loss of them is brutal to the bones. And maybe if those women had been informed, yes, maybe there was other contributing factors and genetics, etc. But maybe the HRT would have stopped it progressing, because we know it's proven. So
Yes,
I
yeah.
don't get it. It's huge gaps
Yeah, but
there.
by the same token, I suppose, you know, to a degree, having said what I just said there, that, you know, it is, I suppose it's the hangover of the blanket ban and the fear around HRT, isn't it? It's that hangover.
WHI, yeah.
Exactly. And you know, that study being so badly interpreted and completely wrong sample group used and all of that kind of stuff. And then the whole thing is there's a witch hunt about it. So there is a very long hangover as a result of that. But I suppose you're here and certainly doing amazing work through the Irish Menopause, and I'm certainly doing what I can do on it to just try and get the facts out to people. So, you know, you can make an informed choice, and you know, hopefully you can make a choice for you, and a choice that's going to change your life and make it way more manageable. Why suffer unnecessarily?
That I don't know. But look, it's different approaches in a mentality, isn't it?
It is.
There's a lot of unnecessary suffering.
There is, yeah, there is. And tell me this, Sallyanne, so, you know, what is it in particular? Because I know it's a huge undertaking, and I know it takes up a huge amount of your life. What do you find particularly rewarding about running the group?
Women getting better. Women, I'll give you a perfect example. There was one member in particular who, there's certain members that we run the group really well, it's policed well, and we keep an eye on certain people, you know, as in we'd be very concerned. And there was one lady that I would have kept an eye on and be concerned about, and she went quiet for a long time, and I was worried. But she went quiet because she's better, and she dropped us a message to she's brand new again, and she's off studying and changing her career line, you know.
Yeah.
And that type of thing, we hear that kind of thing regularly. When you see someone on their hands and knees, literally, that do not want to live another hour, and the next thing then they're thriving, how is that not rewarding?
Yeah.
And that's not, like, we're not doctors. I mean, all we did is give the information and give them a dig out. Then they go to wherever she went to. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah,
like,
no, it is. It's absolutely.
What may have happened?
I know, absolutely. No, it's terrific. And how would you say that the group has evolved over the last 4 years? Apart from the massive numbers that you've attracted, how would you say it's evolved?
I think it started out as an information source, and now I think it's the go-to. I think for evidence-based information. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe, and I mean, the big thing, as you mentioned at the start, was the Joe Duffy thing. That was huge. That was absolutely huge. The group exploded with that, but it just goes to show the reach of that too. Go on. Sorry.
No. I was just agreeing with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely turned into way more than just a Facebook group. And as you know now, I work in menopause, and I do education and one-to-ones, etc. So has it evolved? Yeah, it's huge. And we can't believe it. But again, this is what the women want. It's what women want.
Yeah, and so incredibly gratifying, I'm sure, and satisfying to be able to fill that sort of that previous vacuum with knowledge and support for people, and, you know, easy to join, no problem, and you guys are there all of the time. Do you ever get a day off, Sallyanne?
No, not really. Yes, I mean, obviously I get time off, but you're never off when you've got a group of 50,000. Like, your job is in your pocket on your phone, no matter where you are. But yes, I would get time off, of course, from doing talks and stuff. But no, you don't. And it's 24 hours a day, because we people from the world, it's not just Ireland. It's huge, and you know, it's not about gratification. It's not about that. It's just keep feeding the information. The menopause needed to be pulled by the you-know-what from under that rug. Oh my goodness, like, yeah. And yes, with all respect, there have been people talk about menopause in Ireland for a long time. They have, but it was a different conversation and conversation I wanted. And I know you're thinking, well, who are you? No, I'm not anyone, but who I was a very angry and peed off woman that I nearly lost my life over not being given correct information. That was the difference. And I said, I'm not having this. And, you know, and I remember somebody saying to me, well, that's the way it is. You can't change that. And I was just, it was something clicked with me. What do you mean I can't? I'm going to try. And, you know, that's what's important. Don't like to be told you can't.
No.
What do you mean I can't? Like, how dare people keep this information from us? And this is life, you know, changing for women, and it's costing lives and costing quality of lives. And these women are, you know, their mothers, their sisters, their wives, their friends, but whoever, they're somebody, they matter. And we're being treated like we don't matter. And it's not anyone's fault, it's the system. You know, the medical model coming from the male white anatomy and
no, absolutely. But you know, as I've said over the last couple of months in the build for the event, my little my little saying has been, the genie is out of the lamp now, lads, and we ain't going to squidge the genie back into the lamp. So everybody, you know, menopause is not just a problem for women. Menopause is a problem for everybody. It's a problem for, you know, relationships. It's a problem for families. It's a problem for employers. And it's an issue that everybody is going to have to deal with. And I think the old days, thank God, are crumbling away where, well, this is a woman's problem and off you go there and sort it out yourself. You know, as human beings and female human beings, everyone, if they're lucky enough to live to this age, will experience menopause. It is not an option. It's like puberty. So, you know, everybody just needs to get with the program here. And again, Sallyanne, I know you're doing your very best and an amazing job with your group. And that's certainly my major aim as part of running this event. So look, Sallyanne, I'm just conscious now that it's 7:30, so we might actually just wrap it up there. But look, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I do understand you're an extremely busy lady, so we really do appreciate it, and I hope everybody has enjoyed the chat here this evening. Thanks again so much for your time. I've really enjoyed the chats, really appreciate it. We'll leave it at that this evening. Enjoy your evening, and I'll talk to you again very soon. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thanks all. Thank you. Thanks, Sinead.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.